Joining us on Newsmakers, Senator Dick Durbin, the Majority Whip and Democrat of Illinois. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
Our two reporters, Shayla Murray of the Washington Post and Andrew Taylor of the Associated Press. Shayla Murray has the first question. Go ahead.
Thanks, Senator. So, financial regulatory reform bill on the Senate floor. There's something remarkable is happening. Democrats and Republicans are voting together on amendments. How do you see this bill playing out in the coming days, and what are some of the flashpoints left to sort through, and do you anticipate a bipartisan vote on final passage?
Well, the lead-in to this bill told the story. 3 consecutive days with the Republicans voting to filibuster the bill, to stop the bill from coming for consideration on the floor of the Senate. Meanwhile, to the left of that stage was the committee hearings of Carl Levin, Permanent Subcommittee on Investigation, with Lloyd Blankfein and the folks from Goldman Sachs making a spectacle, which was witnessed by the world. And Republican senators started coming up to their leadership and saying, we're on the wrong side of this issue and we're on the wrong side of history. And now we're seeing more and more amendments, which we thought would be partisan amendments. We're finding some Republicans who want to join us. My guess is, in the end, that we'll have a substantial number of Republicans joining us for passing Wall Street reform. I think they realize that's where the public sentiment is, and politically they made a mistake.
And do you expect this debate to be concluded, within a week or so?
No, that's a hard question. And I know we're going to be broadcast on Sunday. My guess is we won't return to the bill until Tuesday, and then we have to work pretty hard because we only have 3 or 4 days in this coming week. But I hope we stick with it. There are a lot of amendments. As we get together for the show, there are over 140 amendments pending on the floor of the Senate. That's not unusual. In the end, members have to decide their most important amendment. But we have 53 members who have filed amendments, and if each wants one, you can see that that's going to take some time.
You're a member of President Obama's Deficit Commission. You were quoted in Shayla's newspapers saying it would take a miracle to come out with some sort of result that might win a vote on the floor. The commission has met once publicly, and then some members gathered yesterday privately. What are its chances now that you've had a chance to talk to members?
The second half of that quote was, it would take a miracle, and I believe in miracles. And I hope we can do it. But it's hard. It's really difficult. 18 members. Substantial numbers of Democrats and Republicans elected, and a number of outside folks who are coming back, like Alan Simpson, a senator who knows this issue pretty well. Erskine Bowles worked in the White House, a number of people from private industry. So it's a good gathering of people with real talent. But as you look at it, after our second meeting, you can just see the complexity growing and the challenge growing. You know, what is the art of the possible here? What can we come up with that would bring 14 of the 18 together? And if everything is truly on the table, it will mean that some of us will have to swallow hard. Those who are hard and fast against any consideration of new revenue may have to give a little. Those who are hard and fast against any cuts in discretionary domestic spending may have to give a little. But I think we owe it to the country. I think they're looking for us to do this. And I sense a growing sentiment across the United States, even among those who would traditionally be on my side of political issues, that the deficit is a concern. And it's something that we need to address even as we try to work our way out of this recession.
Senator, does that mean then politically that you, to get 14 of the 18 to agree, that you would have to put everything on the table in any sort of agreement they come up with? Spending
Absolutely.
Cuts, tax increases, defense spending.
If we're honest about it, that's the only way to approach it. And it isn't just the entitlement programs, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, veterans programs and the like, all of which are explosive politically. It's the discretionary spending on defense items and on non-defense items. It's tax expenditures, which I keep reminding people, as we give out deductions and credits, we are literally taking money out of the Treasury the same as if we appropriated money from the Treasury for an earmark or a project or a highway. So put it all on the table and talk about what's reasonable. Can we come to a commonality, a common position on it? I'm not sure. But I think that Bowles and Simpson are two good leaders to start us down that path.
Well, the Greek debt crisis has really brought the idea of nations in debt to the forefront. There was a big yo-yo in the stock market on Thursday. Are Are you sensing more and more anxiety among your colleagues about this? I mean, and then secondly, why didn't Democrats decide to take this on? You have a large majority. You have all levers of government right now. Why not try to take this heavy lift, even though it's an election year?
Second question first. We know that if this is going to work politically, we really have to hold hands and jump together. If one party came out with its solution, it would be fairly predictable and not likely to pass. But if both parties come out with a solution, it can pass. In 1983, brand new member of the House of Representatives, they said, "Welcome to Washington, Durbin, Social Security is about to go bankrupt." And so we sat down together, Democrats and Republicans, and came up with an approach. It worked, and it's worked for 25 years plus. So we know that this basic model is a good one. Now here's the dilemma when we look at Greece. We know that the debt of a nation can bring it down financially, and Greece, sadly, is proving that point with an impact not just in its own country, but around the world. But we also know from history that if you don't move quickly and decisively to try to turn a recession, you can fall right back into that pit again. We had high unemployment, which is starting to come down ever so slowly, and if we decide to hit the brakes in terms of government stimulating the economy, we could see the unemployment numbers go up again and the deficit get even worse. So we're trying to find that sweet spot between those two concerns, long-term deficit, short-term recessionary, anti-recessionary policy. It's not an easy place to locate, but I think we can do it.
And on a related topic, President Obama has promised, for the most part, to extend a lot of the Bush tax cuts aimed at middle-income people. For how long are you going to extend them, and will you do that before the election or after?
Not clear yet, and we're still negotiating that. We have a package which has what they call the tax extenders, which you're both well aware of, and that really says that some of the credits, some of the deductions currently in the law that stimulate economic activity need to be extended another year. People are waiting for a signal that they should invest in certain things or continue to invest in certain things. We have that package together with a lot of other concerns. Will we help the states pay for some of their Medicaid expenses? What will we do about teachers being laid off across America? There's just a vast, in the whole question of reimbursement under Medicare for doctors. It is a huge package, and it includes a lot of considerations about how far you can go with taxes and what you can afford to do and what you can pay for.
Looking ahead to the election cycle that we're entering, this midterm cycle, what do you think the big questions are that Democrats need to answer for voters, and how do you get the party right with folks who may have supported you just a couple years ago, were very enthusiastic about President Obama's election, but are now struggling for a home, looking for a home?
Well, I survived '94. I was a member of the House and had an opponent who wasn't really, by Washington standards, a serious challenger, and I won by 6 points. So it was a lot closer than it ever should have been, and I know what this atmosphere and environment is like, even if I'm not on the ballot this year. We're forewarned, though. We've seen it coming for a long time. 6 months from now will be an election, and we have a lot of time between now and then to do things in Congress and address the concerns of the American people. And there are many, and they start with the economy. The first thing people are concerned about is jobs. What are you doing to create more employment, to put people back to work? And we have to give them an answer of what we have done and what we plan to do, looking to the future. The next thing you want to do is to have assurance that we are not going to fall in this recession again. I think that's why this Wall Street reform bill has become so popular and one that we push so hard. People believe that if we do this right, it will lessen the likelihood that we'll run through another recession with more jobs lost, more savings lost. So we've got to build the confidence of the American people that we recognize the challenge, we've responded to it, and that the alternative, Republican control of Congress, will plunge us back into Bush economic policies that created the recession. It's a pretty stark choice, and I think if given that choice, our base is going to stand up and say, are we going to give away everything that we won in the last presidential election? Or are we going to stand up for the people who are going to keep moving us in that same direction? So I think we've got a chance to activate our base in the next 6 months.
What about jobs legislation specifically? What is the plan for the next 6 months?
Well, there are a variety of plans for it. I mean, we've got two bills. The smaller bill, which we considered early on, and it's one that includes, for example, the forgiveness of FICA contributions by employers who hire the unemployed. There are increases in efforts under the Small Business Act to provide loans and credit to small business. There's an effort from the administration that we want to work with to take some of the TARP funds unexpended, move them to a different account, but provide them as a basis for credit for small businesses. I think more and more I've come to believe, and most people have, that small business is really the engine that's going to pull us forward out of this. I'm for infrastructure projects. I think they are of value to the economy long term, but